Hello, everyone, and welcome to Grow With Us. My name is Evan Barton, and I'm your host who helps create conversations with the innovators and leaders of a growing tech center in Tulsa, Oklahoma. The Grow With Us podcast highlights in-Tulsa talent's work of bridging Tulsa talent with tech opportunities and the revolutionary work around the city. In-Tulsa's mission is to connect talented individuals and companies to stimulate economic growth in Tulsa and to create more prosperous communities across the region. Each episode, Grow With Us discusses the growth of opportunities, the growth of communities striving for change, or the tech and innovation that is changing the landscape of Tulsa. On this episode of Grow With Us, we're in conversation with Grant Bumgarner, the Director of Experience Tulsa. We discuss the program launch of Experience Tulsa, Tulsa's landscape for community, and the history of Tulsa's downtown. Grant, it's so great to have you on this episode. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
This is going to be great. I kind of always touch on how I know the person that I have sitting before me as we get this episode started. And Grant and I have a path that is intersecting at parts and divergent at parts, but we're back to intersecting now, which is, I don't know if you would describe it that way, but Booker T,
right,
back in the ecosystem in Tulsa, that's where I see us weaving in and out.
Definitely boomerangs and same high school and then coming back to both work in the GKFF ecosystem.
Oh yeah, and killing the game, both of us. Let's just start off with
ourselves
that.
on the back.
Grant, go ahead and tell all of our Grow With Us listeners your story in whatever way you feel comfortable.
Yeah. So like Evan said, I'm from Tulsa, born and raised, grew up here. My family has been here for a real long time. So all my family, extended cousins, aunts and uncles were all here. Had typical awesome Tulsa childhood. Spent a lot of time at Woodward Park. Really just loved it. Went to Booker T for high school, best high school in the state.
Booker T.
Hornets. Had a blast. Did a lot of speech and debate when I was there. It was a really fun time. And then went off to school at Northwestern University in Chicago. Spent 4 years in Chicago and loved it. It's one of my favorite cities. It was an incredible place. I had an absolute blast. But kind of while I was away, started to look back at Tulsa and really was excited about what was happening here. And so I moved back following college, and that would have been in 2019, and started working for the George Kaiser Family Foundation, originally as a fellow, then moved over to the Tulsa Remote team, worked a couple different positions there, and back to the foundation. And now moving on to this new role that I'm sure we'll discuss later. And yeah, in general, I mean, love Tulsa. It's a big part of my personality. Love live music. Love the live music scene here. Love getting out and about in nature. I try to go up to the tall grass prairie a couple times every year.
Nice.
So yeah, it's a little bit about me.
I love it. Thank you. I think it's good to kind of ground us in where we're both coming from with our stories, because our stories are kind of who we are, mm-hmm. And Tulsa plays a big part in a lot of our stories, and at least you and I's story, which is really cool, that we can kind of connect in that way and really talk about. Really, this next question is really going to get into that too. How has Tulsa changed for you over the years? I mean, you have that longevity here, and similar to me, I grew up here for the most part, age 9 on, and so I've had a little bit of Tulsa in my life, or had a lot of bit of Tulsa in my life, but a little bit of other places. I was actually originally from Muskogee, Oklahoma, Tahlequah, Northeast Oklahoma, Green Country,
Cherokee County.
Just really broadening all of that. But how have you kind of seen Tulsa change over the years?
Gosh, so much. I mean, so much. And it's been fun too, getting to hear the long-term change of Tulsa. So my folks have been here. I think I'm the 5th generation. And so I've gotten to see the city from pre-statehood in 1907 all the way to kind of where it is today. And it's changed many, many times over. But the most recent iteration has been, fascinating. I mean, when we were growing up, we're sitting right now in the Arts District downtown. And I always try to tell people that this is not like the historic Arts District.
Yeah.
This was the vacant warehouse district for the vast majority of my life. And most of downtown, I mean, like a similar story, I'm sure a lot of people here in other cities, our downtown was really hit hard by urban renewal. And so, when I was born, downtown was where people came to work, but it's not where people hung out. And I think one of the biggest indicators of just the massive change that's really happened in Tulsa, I've seen so many individual examples, but like when I talk to my aunts, right,
Mhm.
who grew up here and graduated in the early 2000s, late 90s, um, they have a totally different perception of Tulsa. Like
Yeah.
Tulsa was not a fun place in their mind to be in high school. It was certainly not a fun place to be in your early 20s and like come back. Like coming back after they went off for college was like
Dreaded
it was a
almost. Yeah.
horrible idea. It was like, oh
Yeah.
my God, what? No, anywhere else. And I don't think that they were necessarily wrong or like had some negative output. I really just think there was so much less to do.
Yeah.
So I mean, but that was a big part of when I was in college. Um, it felt like things were happening without me.
Yeah.
Like kind of when we were in high school, I feel like a lot of things started happening. The arts district
Yeah.
kind of starts getting created. The Guthrie Green, there starts to be a lot of new life downtown, even in Midtown and north of downtown and Kendall
Mhm.
Whittier district, and everything starts picking up a little bit. And then while I was away, it just felt like announcement after announcement. It's, oh, we just bought the Bob Dylan archives and
Yeah.
they're coming to Tulsa. The Gathering
The
Place
Gathering
gets
Place.
completed, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the largest private gift to a city in American history, and I think the nicest park in the nation just
Yeah.
popped up. I mean, so I've gotten to see a city that has always been an incredible place to raise a family turn into an incredible place to be young
Mhm.
and be single or be young and just kind of looking to enjoy life or pursue a really interesting career. It's
Yeah.
become a much more vibrant place for folks other than just the grandparents and the parents of the world.
Yeah, no, I think that's such a great perspective, and my little tidbit on that is that I think when we were going to high school here, like as I progressed through Booker T, I felt like there were things that were kind of dragging me closer to downtown.
Mhm.
One of our, you'll remember this, I'm sure, but like one of our famous haunts to go to right after like I don't know, like seventh hours like TOK class would be to go to the Phoenix and do our
Yeah,
homework.
yeah.
We like
Rest in peace.
yeah, rest in peace. Love Bramble, but the Phoenix was great. And we would
Yep.
always go there right after school to like study for an exam or whatever. And like it was on the fringe of downtown, right by Centennial Park.
Totally.
And
Yeah, the Pearl District was just becoming a thing.
just becoming a thing. And then from there, after SOFA meetings, we would go to Corner Cafe, which is also like just really
Mhm.
close to downtown. Also rest in peace. It's
Yeah.
not there anymore.
Yeah.
But like there were just these things that were growing kind of as we were growing out of it. And
Totally.
going back to that perspective of like, our aunts and uncles and young people 20 years ago didn't want to stay here. I mean, I think that's kind of a symptom of just Tulsa feeling like a small, big town,
Right.
where everyone wants to get out of their small town. It's like on to bigger and better things because they could see bigger and better things elsewhere. But you and I both got a taste of what bigger and better things might have looked like other places. And I don't know about you, but I did not see a lot of bigger and better things
No.
where I headed.
No, I mean, yeah, I think that what people are really looking for is that it's a difference between a feeling of stagnation and a feeling of like vibration, interesting things happening. And I
Yeah.
think for a lot of Tulsa's recent history, there's been so much vibration. It just
Yeah.
feels like things are popping up. And that's exciting when you're growing up and it's like there's a new restaurant, there's a new coffee shop, there's a
Mhm.
new district, there's it feels like you're a part of something that's changing, that's growing, that's interesting. And that's fun to be growing and changing within that context. Where I think, in the early 2000s and late 90s, I think there was a period where folks felt like this was a stagnant place. And if I stay here, I'm going to be a stagnant person.
Yeah.
Which I don't think was ever totally true, but it's definitely more true than it is now. I mean, there's just a lot of vibrancy in the city.
Yeah.
And I think that, you reflect your surroundings. If you want to be a vibrant and interesting person, you want to be in a vibrant and interesting city. But I
Yeah.
do think it's interesting because I felt the same thing when I was in Chicago. All my friends at school were either from Chicago or they were from the coast.
Yeah.
And there were like 8 people from Oklahoma at the whole school. And so, they would always say, well, you want to go back to Tulsa? Like, why do you want to go back to Tulsa? There's so much more to do here.
Mhm.
And I would always say, I mean, yeah, objectively, yes, there is more to do in Chicago, but I actually do more in Tulsa
Yeah.
because Chicago to me always felt awesome, but it was overwhelming. It was really hard to ever feel like I was a genuine part of the city. Even
Yeah.
after being there for 4 years, I still kind of felt like a tourist.
Mhm.
I couldn't quite get my hands around it. And it also was just a behemoth. It was like 45 minutes to get downtown
Yeah.
on the L. And like, if my friends called me up and just spontaneously were like, hey, we're going out to dinner tonight. It's like, that's gonna be really expensive. It's gonna be really hard to get to. I'm gonna have to find
How
parking.
am I going to get back?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to get back. It's gonna take my whole night. So like you had to almost plan your weekends like a week in advance.
Yeah.
Whereas in Tulsa, I'll just get a call from a buddy who's like, "Hey, there's a new bar that opened. Do you want to go there
See you there in an hour.
5 minutes?" Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll be there. I'm
Exactly.
nearby." So it's just, as long as there is enough interesting things to do and things changing, which there absolutely is in Tulsa right now,
Yeah.
it's a lot of fun to actually feel like it's also fun to just feel like you know what's happening in the city.
Oh, that's my favorite part about living here right now. Is just because I get to bring people to town. I actually have a really close friend that I'm moving to town recently.
Congrats.
Yeah, within like the next week. So I'm really excited about that. And she's coming from Wichita,
Okay.
and it's kind of similar vibes in the sense of
Yeah.
like Midwest towns that like are really trying to grow their things. But I think just being plugged into what I'm plugged into right now, like I can tell her about the film and art stuff that's going on. We could go to all these places that are opening up. We can like I just can feel more a part of a community if I'm experiencing it with someone else, but also like because I know about it
Yeah.
too. It's exciting for all of those reasons that we've talked about. And I think it's one of the reasons I think for me, I didn't necessarily want to come back to Tulsa. Sorry to everyone listening.
No.
But really out of necessity, the pandemic hit when I was graduating, and it didn't seem like the worst decision ever to go back home.
No.
Because also like the gathering place had sprung up while I was gone. Downtown was growing in a way that I had never interacted with before. And then opportunities in the city existed that I didn't know I could be a business professional here. I didn't know what that even looked like. And so it was just, it kind of just made sense. And now I love that you said it's kind of a big part of my personality is Tulsa. I feel like I would say the same thing. A lot of people like see my LinkedIn posts and see all these things and they're like, you must really love Tulsa. And I'm like, yeah, I do.
Yeah. It's funny you say that because I always, when I was working at Tulsa Remote and then since then I've been working in kind of bringing people to Tulsa, but also in my own experience, and it sounds like in yours, a big part of coming back to Tulsa or moving here for the first time is like giving yourself permission to think of possibilities, outside of what you might have. I think traditionally you grow up and you think, okay, if I want to be a serious business person or I want to be a serious, career focused individual, there's like 8 cities I can move to. And if I don't, then I'm letting myself down and I'm not being ambitious, or if I want to be like a fun loving, young person, there's like 8 cities I can go live in. And like, if I'm not moving to Miami, I'm not fun. You know what I mean? Like these kinds of things. And I think that like so much of what I learned when I was in college, because I came back every summer, was this process of giving myself permission of being like, oh no, wait, I could have a really fulfilling life in Tulsa. I could actually have a more fulfilling life in Tulsa. Oh, I could have a lot of fun in Tulsa. I might actually have more fun in Tulsa. And like getting over these preconceived ideas that draw, I think, a lot of people to big cities that oftentimes end in them being a little disappointed.
Yeah, feeling empty,
feeling like they actually can't get connected, and then blaming themselves and feeling like they did New York wrong or they did Chicago wrong. When really it's not for everybody, and Tulsa's not for everybody. But I think it's for so many more people than realize it.
Yes,
and so much of our journey is like helping people see themselves here.
Yeah. Oh, I love that phrase that you just said, because I think it's really going to connect to our conversation about experience.
Good.
We're about to get there.
Yeah.
You've kind of answered a little bit of this, but how did you navigate Tulsa when you came back from college? What communities did you find, and how did it kind of change and shape you into what you're working on now?
Yeah, I was really lucky. So I was a year older than you. So I got to get back. I got to graduate without the pandemic and then come back to Tulsa, and I got like a solid 8 months before everything hit the fan. I think that a lot of when I first got back to Tulsa, I was obviously got integrated into a lot of the work that was being done at the foundation and the Vibrant Inclusive Tulsa team, which is our economic development kind of wing under which all of us work.
Yeah.
And so I really got just inundated right away with like, whoa, there's a lot happening here. Like we're trying to attract this company and we're bringing in these people. And we just started this venture capital wing and all this really cool stuff. But I also just came back and like got to engage with the city in a new way because I was lame. I never had a fake ID.
I was going to say, like when you're over 21, you get to experience this place differently.
I never like went to the Blue Dome district at, on a Friday or Saturday night. So like I got to come back and go to the bars and I made a lot of incredible friends. I will say that that's one of my favorite things about Tulsa. It is very easy to make friends here, like genuine, interesting friends.
frequency happens
Yeah. And you're running
constantly.
into them all the time,
Yeah.
and you find out your cousins, and it's like you're connected somehow.
Yeah.
But like it's so easy to make those kind of friendships. And so I came back, I made a lot of new friends, some through work, some through just going out and meeting people. Um, re-engage with the city a lot. I like to engage with it a lot through like restaurants and bars.
Yeah.
I love going out to eat. And so all these new restaurants had popped up, started engaging with that. Again, the live music scene.
Yeah.
Spent a lot of time at the Mercury Lounge, my favorite bar, and
Yes.
a lot of other great live music joints. And just really quickly, obviously felt back at home. There's that aspect of it too. But it was like a new version of Tulsa to really get to experience. And so I did that for about 8 months. Then, of course, the pandemic hit, and we did a little pause.
Yeah, everyone hit pause for a long
pause.
time.
But ever since then, I've just been getting deeper and deeper into the community. And I always stress to people that, like, my story obviously is helped by the fact that I'm from here, and I know a lot of people. But I genuinely cannot tell you how many people, whether it's through Tulsa Remote, friends of mine, like I actually brought 2 of my friends to Tulsa from college. So how fast you can get integrated into this city in like a meaningful way.
Yeah.
Like through your work, through your volunteerism, through your social scenes, you can really feel a part of this community rapidly.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a million examples, but like a perfect one that's kind of weird, but we just had Halloween a few weeks ago, and Tulsa Theater was putting on Little Shop of Horrors, which was directed by a guy who moved to Tulsa 2.5 years ago through Tulsa Remote, Oboom. And Oboom is now, he's already put on a play that he wrote.
Yeah, he's
and
done
then
a little bit of everything.
Directing theater Tulsa. Like, that's not going to happen in a lot of other cities.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I moved here 2 years ago, and I kind of got into the theater scene, and now I'm like leading the local theater. Like
at the PAC, like at our biggest.
No, at the real, like this is like the largest local theater company. I mean, it's just a million stories like that of people who just genuinely get connected. So I just went through that process of kind of starting to reconnect with the city, meeting new people. And then it's been really fun getting to connect with the city through the perspective of new Tulsans.
Yes.
I get to meet so many new Tulsans and hear, what are they excited about? What do they see as needing to change? What do they like about the city? Where do they see the city going? You spend so much time being a Tulsan, but these folks, as they're becoming Tulsans, give you this opportunity almost to look in the mirror and see what other folks are kind of seeing of your city and how they interact with it. And so that's been a really interesting way to learn about the town as well.
I love that. It is a lot like a mirror, because you see, or at least for me, I'm like sometimes comparing how they're navigating the city to how I am. And I'm like, oh, they're like really getting involved in these things.
I know. Sometimes they put me to shame.
Yeah. And it's so funny, because that was exactly like my college experience too, of like, oh, these are people that are like, know what they want to get out of something, and they're just doing it. They're not unabashedly like joining a new thing or trying something that they might not have ever done. Starting a business. I mean, that's like the entrepreneurial scene here is insane. And we talk about it a lot with our guests and things like that. But that's what a lot of people that I see come here with their ideas. They find not only the resources to grow those ideas, but also sometimes the capital or the team members that are going to help build that idea so that it can become more than just an idea.
Totally.
It's so cool to see that happen. And I think I use it as inspiration for the most part, because I mean, this is kind of how podcasting became a thing for me, was when I was at Atento. I started my own podcast and entrepreneurial journey from there. Like, if I saw it all the way through to like a first season 2's coming. We'll see. I can't say the name of the podcast because it has profanity in it, but and I don't want to plug it. But just exploring new things that I didn't know I would enjoy as much as I did. I'm a huge externalizer. Like, if I have something on my heart and my mind, if I just speak it out into the world, I think it really relieves a lot of pressure.
Totally.
So that's why I really like podcasting, and I've got to do that exclusively in Tulsa.
They always say, what do they say? I mean, like, well, when I say they say, what do I say? I say this, other people say it too, is that in Tulsa, you're only ever like one coffee away from getting something done. And it's so easy to get connected here. Like, I can't tell you how many people have similar stories. They're like, I was really into this, and then I met so-and-so, and they told me to like meet with the deputy mayor of the city. And so then, a week and a half later, I had coffee with the deputy mayor, and then I'm kind of working on this new interesting task force. I mean, that just happens. If you are an ambitious person, this is what's a little counterintuitive. And like a perfect example of this, I'm sure he's probably been on it, is Mike
Yeah.
Bosch.
Oh, well, he will be at one day, but he's also been mentioned probably
well,
every other
Mike Bosch,
episode.
but also like Aaron Miller. I mean, there's
Yeah.
a million examples of people who, like, if you're an ambitious person and you know what you want to do or have some sense of it and you have a lot of drive, Tulsa is an incredible canvas for that,
Yeah.
because you've got a really welcoming community and you've got big city amenities and
Yeah.
access to big city capital, big city, we have big city issues that we deal with that need to be resolved. And so like there's this template here to work on, but it's also so much less red tape and
Yeah.
so much easier to be seen as like a valid voice in the community than it is in almost any other place.
And
So
creative solutions to get there too. Because
Yeah.
I think those two guys that you mentioned specifically are like the people connectors, and just
Right.
know anyone that they know the deputy mayor and are like, yeah, here's his phone number. Like,
Yeah.
and they're willing to give it out because they know how meaningful that connection could be to that opportunity. I love it. Those are we got to get them on. They're great guys. Pivoting just a little bit, but really what I'm super excited to talk to you about is this new initiative that you're leading.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about Experience Tulsa.
Gosh, yeah. So Experience Tulsa, as it's all of a week and a half old at this point. It's really exciting. Yeah, it's a new entity that's focused really on what it sounds like. Providing a white glove and meaningful, genuine experience to anyone that we're bringing in through our ecosystem to experience Tulsa.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So the work we do on our Vibrant Inclusive Tulsa team, so right through In Tulsa, Innovation Labs, Atento, a variety of other organizations, we focus on building a vibrant and inclusive economy here in Tulsa. The secondary mission of the foundation is to create, is placemaking efforts to create Tulsa as being the best place to be born, grown, and thrive in the country. And it's to complement our primary mission, which is to intersect intergenerational poverty. And so in order, for all the work that we do on that front to be successful, we need to have an economy here that has a lot of opportunity, that retains talented people, that stops the brain drain that we experienced for so many years, and that, creates immense equitable opportunity in the city. So that's where we all work. And through that process, as our efforts have grown, we've ended up bringing a lot of interesting people to Tulsa, whether that's somebody who's visiting to potentially move, or somebody who maybe wants to move a company, or maybe they're just thinking about hiring some remote workers from Tulsa. Maybe they're a remote worker looking to move, or maybe they're just, a journalist or a thought leader who wants to know more about what's happening in Tulsa. We bring in just to visit, to see, to get a taste of Tulsa, thousands of people over the last few years. And so Experience Tulsa is really here to streamline those efforts and take some of the burden off some of our organizations that love hosting people, but would probably prefer focusing on their primary missions a little more exclusively. And so we're here to be the front door to Tulsa. If you're coming to visit, to see the city through one of our kind of entities, you'll be dealing with Experience Tulsa, and we want to make sure that you get the most meaningful, impactful, and genuine taste of Tulsa as possible. And we always say, like, we're not in the business of selling the city of Tulsa. People don't like to be sold. They don't like to be told, what to do. We're here to just expose it. We really think that Tulsa's an incredible, incredible city, and that it's really undervalued. And so many people, when they come, I would say over 80% of the people that we bring in, it's their first time. And so we really want to make sure that that first experience gives them an authentic idea of what Tulsa is, so that they can then make an educated decision about, do I want to move there? Do I want to move my company there? Do I want to hire from there? Do I want to write an article, about the city? And so that's kind of in a nutshell what we're doing. I keep saying we. Right now it's just me, but by the end of the year, there should be several more folks on the team, and we'll be fully operational kind of in January.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. The mission and obviously the impact that we can kind of see organizationally is going to be immense. I think a big number I wanted to shout out in that is that I think it was in the news this week, but Tulsa Remote has moved 2,000 people to Tulsa.
2000th member came in,
which is awesome. And that's since 2018. which is a huge. I mean, it's a huge number. I mean, that's 500 people a year coming to town, and that's not only the workers but their families and all of
Yeah.
the people that they bring along with them, and then all of the Tulsa ambassadors essentially that we've created too. Of like those people have experienced Tulsa for
Oh,
a
yeah.
year at least, and so they can at least be a testament to what the city is like. And I think that that domino effect has created almost this need for something like experience to happen for like this ecosystem because a lot of people know about Tulsa.
It's funny you say that. My favorite thing when I worked at Tulsa Remote, I had many favorite things, but one of my most favorite things was the first visit, the first time that someone who had moved here would have their family or friends come and visit them.
Yeah, yeah.
That was always so special because you see this person who, and I would run into them like on the street,
Mhm.
right? And you see this person who 3 months ago, 4 months ago, didn't know Tulsa from Adam. I mean, they just
Yeah.
had no idea what was here. And now all of a sudden they're walking down the street and they're pointing stuff out.
Yeah,
And they're saying,
showing
this
people.
building was actually built, and like so excited about it. And, it's like that quick ability to take ownership and like feeling like a Tulsan. That to me was you became a Tulsan the
Yeah.
first time you brought someone here and
Oh, yeah.
shared the city with them. And so that was always fun. So yeah, we are definitely in the business of creating ambassadors.
I think that feeling too of being. I mean, I love that tour guide element
Yeah.
of everything. This past weekend, I had two friends come to celebrate my birthday with me, which was super
Oh,
fun.
happy birthday.
Thank you. And I was showing them the arts district and telling them about my favorite. We did basically a food tour because my
Okay,
friends
yeah.
love to eat, and I was very curious. I was like sitting there after every meal, like, what do they kind of think about all of this?
I
Just
know.
because I'm like, I want you to be honest, but like, I love it here. Like, I don't need you guys to love it too. I just want to know what your honest thoughts
Right.
are. But it was just so cool to like really see what people experienced the city through my like I guess lens or whatever. But
Yeah.
and then they might take that somewhere else. And all my friends were like, "Yeah, we're gonna have to come back," and not just because like it was comfortable and easy and probably a lot cheaper than LA and Dallas where they're coming
Probably,
from.
yeah.
But, it was a cool time to kind of see the city, and it ended up being a beautiful fall weekend. All of those things. I think you see it in a different light, and I think everyone comes here with some type of preconceived notion, whether it's like
Yeah.
the politics, the crime, or the anything that anyone could attribute to a city is like probably what people are going to look at.
Yeah.
And I think that we're doing that effort of like not constantly, but just actively dispelling it by living here and telling people, well, this is how I interact with this part
Right.
of town, or this really doesn't affect me in the way that you might think that it does,
Right.
type of thing.
It's funny. We always would find at Tulsa Remote that, I think that sometimes there's a slight negative connotation with Tulsa or with Oklahoma.
Mhm.
But oftentimes we found that there was just zero
No
it was like
connotation,
people
yeah.
would show up, and a really common comment we got was like, "Oh my gosh, there's trees." I was like, "What do you think?" Because also people don't really know what part of the country we are. Like,
Yeah.
you ask 5 Tulsans, they'll give you 5 answers.
What is your answer? I always say the Southern Plains because just being
That's not a
native
bad
and being
answer, honestly.
being indigenous, it doesn't feel like the Midwest. It
Oh, I
doesn't
agree. I agree
feel-
100%.
It kind of feels more like the South, but not the deep South, not the South like Texas. It feels
Yeah.
different from that as well.
I know it's really, it is complicated. I don't
Yeah.
know. It also, like, certain parts of the state feel more, if you go to the Panhandle, it's the West. If you go to
Yes.
southwestern Oklahoma, it's the West. Yeah, there's so many parts of that are really interesting. I don't
Yeah.
know. We're not the Midwest. We're probably closest to Texas, but we're not really that close to Texas.
Yeah. In
Um,
terms of sensibility.
a sense, yeah, right, exactly, and ego. But I don't know. I mean, yeah, we're not really a purely. We have some Southern sensibilities, but I also feel like, frankly, like a big part of like the formative Southern identity is the Civil War, which of course Oklahoma doesn't exist
Had no
for,
part in,
and
yeah.
we're not a Confederate or a Union state,
Yeah.
and so. I mean, I like to think it's kind of like Tulsa's a very unique city. Oklahoma's a really unique state. I always
Yeah.
used to tell people that, to me, Tulsa was the most American city, and I meant that kind of with all the good and all the baggage.
Yeah.
Right? You've got the birth of literally an entire industry here in the oil industry. You've got some incredible architecture. You've got the end of the Trail of Tears.
Mhm.
You have the birth of Black Wall Street. You have the destruction of Black Wall Street. You have the
Yeah.
rebirth of Black
Rebirth.
Wall Street. So I
Yeah.
mean, you kind of have all these different components good, bad, and ugly of American history that interplay here, but we kind of take from all parts. So I don't know. I think Southern Plains isn't a
Yeah.
bad way to put it.
Thank you. I didn't come up with it. Another Oklahoma did. I love what you just hinted at right there and kind of talking about, because it's definitely leading into my next question, and something that you're pretty well known for around town about, giving really great tours of downtown
Oh,
Tulsa.
shucks.
I've had the pleasure of being on one. Was furiously taking notes. And, I was very curious, kind of how you learned about downtown in that way, and kind of how did you create that experience for folks? I will add before you go in that, coming from Chicago, did you do that Chicago boat tour of the
I
architecture?
love the Chicago boat tour.
Oh my gosh.
Everyone do the Chicago boat tour.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And I felt like your tour was a version of that, but on a trolley bus.
I know there's a part of me that wanted to like fill like the back of a truck with water and like put a dinghy in it and just drive around and do a Oklahoma boat tour. No, I just the thing is, when people are visiting from out of town, they don't know anything about Tulsa, so you can just make it up. So I just no. Yeah, I love history, obviously, and I love Oklahoma history, and Tulsa obviously is a huge component of that. And again, if you're an American history fan, Oklahoma history is so unique and touches on so many components. I mean, a state that's the end of the Trail of Tears, that's founded by land run, which is kind of an insane metaphor for the country, right?
Yeah.
And then obviously it was, at one time it had over 40 all black towns. It was considered by the US Senate to potentially become an all black state. It has the first black US Marshal. Like, whatever background you have in your interaction with the country, there's an interesting interplay with it here that you can kind of dig into. So I love the history. I love Tulsa's history. I particularly love downtown Tulsa. I grew up, when my first job was, I was a janitor in some of the buildings downtown when I was in like late middle school. And my dad worked in those buildings, and so I spent a lot of time there. And it's just, you start to just feel the history, and then you actually learn it. And to me, the easy part is the facts and things and the dates of buildings, those can be learned. And I've learned those, but it's really about getting the story of the city, right? Like, people need the narrative, because Tulsa is such a narrative city. It is highs and lows and insane peaks and valleys. And I mean, it's in that way very much like an oil city. I mean, it's a boom and bust town. It has all this really interesting narrative within it. And so that's what I try to get across. I always tell people at the beginning of a tour, I want to talk to you about past, present, and future. We're going to talk about Tulsa's past because it's so important to understand its present. But the most exciting thing is the future. I really believe this is a city that has one of the most interesting and distinct futures ahead of it of any American city. And when someone's on one of my tours, they're there because in some way they're being asked, or they're considering being a part of that future. And so you really have to let people see, like, genuinely, this is how I can see this going. And if you can see it too, come aboard. But the last thing we ever want to do is make someone feel like you're selling them on the city. No, you're pitching it too hard.
That's exactly why your tour is really great, because you don't do that. Like, even for the people, I think what's so fun is, like, I've lived here arguably my whole life, since age 9. And I learned so many things on that tour, because, like, I think that it's hard for the city to sell itself. Right. And so even to get people to do it, like, doesn't always feel, it might feel salesy or whatever, but like, you're like you said, you're providing a narrative more than you're selling something that's packaged and presentable or whatever. I loved the narrative about the Mayo building and the construction.
Yeah.
Because that was like so kind of, it was just characterized exactly like you said about the boom and the bust, and how things were in that time, and then how Tulsa was at that time, and then how Tulsa's like not like that now, but like the remnants of that can be seen in its construction, or can be seen in its like how people interact with it now. It was well, for your listeners,
the Mayo is a gorgeous old hotel here that gets built by the Mayo brothers, who are furniture salesmen who become wildcatters, meaning they're self-financing oil exploration. So intensely
also
risky.
fascinating and insane. I can't believe that even happened.
Great terms. Oilies have the best terms. Talk to an old oilie and you'll get the best weird terms. But yeah, they were wildcatters, made a fortune. They spent a lot of time in New York in their travels, and they loved the Plaza Hotel, and they wanted an opulent hotel here in Tulsa. So they built the Mayo Hotel. beautiful hotel. It's where all of the dignitaries and celebrities and everybody stayed for decades in Tulsa. And then, like the city, it falls into disrepair. And it ceases to function as a hotel. It becomes so incredibly bombed out that the city sold it to the developer that turned it back into a hotel in, I think, 2003 for $1.
Like $1. Yeah, when you said that, I was like, wait,
$1.
what?
I know, right? Where was I? No,
Exactly.
but they then obviously put a lot of money into making it a beautiful hotel again. And to me, that is the metaphor for the city. It's we have a genuine claim at so many interesting and unique parts of our history. That's still within us.
Yeah.
We're still that city that built Black Wall Street. We're still that city that, created one of the largest industries in the world. Almost every major, American energy company was founded here in Tulsa. We're still that magic city that they used to call us, that popped up overnight, that had the busiest airport in the world, that had the first Rolls-Royce dealership in America, that had the Osage Nation, the wealthiest peoples on earth. We have legitimate claims on all that history. And we forgot about it for a long time, like the Mayo Hotel. We boarded it up and we didn't think about it. And now again, I always say permission, but we're going back to giving ourselves permission to be like, this is really who we are, and it's okay for us to claim it, and let's embrace it and build on that. And when new people come in, I mean, the thing about, again, the most American city, being a Tulsan doesn't mean that you've been in Tulsa forever, or that you've seen all that history.
Not a punch card or anything.
No, and Tulsa's so welcoming. I mean, the one thing you will always hear about Tulsans is that it's a very welcoming community. Everyone is very friendly. Like, this is a genuine opportunity. Like, you can come here and be part of that in a matter of months. You can really feel like you are tapped into that history because, again, there's going to be somebody who looks like you in that history. There's going to be somebody who thinks like you in that history, and you can have a claim on that, and you can come here and you can move the city forward. That's a big part of what I always say in the tours as well, is that, Tulsa is so unique. You say, it's a big city amenities, small town feel. Well, for folks looking to make a difference, whether that's in business or philanthropy or volunteerism or, arts or whatever, I always say that Tulsa's big enough to where your voice is amplified, but it's small enough to where it's still heard. And I think it's really true. This is a unique city where it's big enough to where I can go see, Bruce Springsteen, go play at the BOK Center in a few weeks. I can also find parking at that concert and not be a million miles away. And I can also run into people I know who have meaningful roles in my life in weird capacities all the time. I got this coffee this morning and I ran into an old teacher of mine, and it was a really lovely way to start the day. There aren't a lot of cities like that. And Tulsa's unique. And so in so many ways, but that's what the tours are for. The tours are to get people to see what I think Tulsa truly is.
And to see themselves in the city.
Absolutely.
Which is so cool. There's so many good parts of that tour, and you'll get to, if you want to experience Tulsa, you'll get to experience Tulsa.
There's the plug.
Through Grant's tours, coming to you soon, I'm sure.
Yes, very soon. Coming to a city, well, near me.
Coming
to
my
us. City.
One last thing I wanted to kind of touch on, as like an element of Experience Tulsa, that I'm really excited for the potentials that this has, and how it's going to kind of change what's already here and all the people that are coming here as well. But is this community element. So, what does the current landscape of community look like in Tulsa? I mean, I also have an answer to this question that I think we could kind of talk about, but how do you think that experience is going to kind of catalyze or change some of that community?
Totally. So kind of the idea behind a lot of the community work, which is the second part of Experience Tulsa, which I didn't touch on, it comes from our work with Tulsa Remote, right? So in Tulsa Remote, if you're a remote worker and you apply and are accepted, we'll pay you $10,000 to do the remote job you're already doing from Tulsa for 1 year. We'll also give you 3 free years of co-working space. And then we have a huge number of events and community building opportunities, because when you move across the country, probably to a place you haven't been to before or haven't lived in for a long time, it can be hard, particularly if you work remotely, right? And you don't have those daily interactions, to feel genuinely integrated. So a huge part of the work we do is to make sure at Tulsa Remote that people actually have the opportunity to engage at a professional level, at a personal level, and everywhere in between with other people. I always say in some ways, the first year of Tulsa Remote when folks move is a little like college. Because everyone's really excited to meet people. Nobody really knows that many people. And so it's super easy to make friends.
Yeah.
And so we put on, when I was there, tons of events. They still do to this day, do an incredible job. And those are anything from happy hours to, we'd rent out the drive-in movie theater and do a big movie. We'd go out to the Botanic Gardens. We'd have volunteer events at Iron Gate, which is our food bank. And so we would do all sorts of stuff for people to genuinely get to feel connected. And then, of course, we had, a Slack channel and things where folks connected on passions and interests of their own.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big reason why Tulsa Remote has a retention rate. So people staying well beyond their first year of over 85%.
Yeah.
Because they make those connections. So the idea is, okay, well, we bring in lots of people to Tulsa, and there are a lot of people who move to Tulsa, not through Tulsa Remote.
Yeah, now through various capacities.
Other capacities. Maybe it's an Atento company that just, got invested in, and they moved their 4-person team here from San Diego, and they don't know anybody.
Yeah.
How do we build that community amongst those kind of more disparate groups and provide that opportunity for the new hire from in Tulsa and, the new company through Atento and the new company through Build in Tulsa? These are all, entities of ours, to genuinely feel like they're connecting. And then how do you use that to help, longtime Tulsans who didn't move here recently, who've been here their whole time, get engaged with that community and build those genuine connections so that folks really, integrate and assimilate into feeling really quickly like, no, I'm really a Tulsan. Like, I'm not a transplant. And so, we're really looking at finding the best types of events for that. So there'll be some professional opportunities, but there's also going to be a lot of like, hey, we're going to put on a big dinner and like invite 25 new people and 25 Tulsans who are really interested in getting engaged with this part of the community. And there'll be, civic leaders here and business leaders here. And like, let's all get together and have a really interesting dinner and conversation. And that'll be an amenity and an option for anybody who's coming in through that GKFF ecosystem. If there's another new hire in Tulsa, anyone who comes in, we want to make sure that they feel like they get the best experience while they're here and that they really get a chance to meet people and engage. So the community component, that's why anyone I think stays in any city.
Yeah.
And Tulsa in particular, we have such a strong community here, but we want to make sure that folks feel like they can really quickly access that.
Yeah, it's such an important element of obviously what you're saying about retention and then belonging too. I mean, you want to know that there are people like you that are interested in the same things.
Totally.
And you can meet those people not once a month, but maybe even once a week. Like meeting up with those people would be it's just it can really catalyze your experience in a city and kind of unlock a different way that you might see it. And I don't know, it's such a cool idea, and I'm so excited for it to be executed. Mostly because like I think that in kind of the capacity we're talking about with like the GKFF organizations, like something that I've seen in kind of my community work is that like especially with like coming to a job on the in Tulsa side, people come to Tulsa with a job, and that's that it's a new job. And so it's a little bit different from the Tulsa Remote side where they're coming with a job that they already have, kind of a routine or whatever. Some of these folks are entering the tech industry for the first time. Some of these folks are at the end all. Starting a new job is like probably top 10 like scariest things for a lot of people.
Right.
And so on top of that, having to get accustomed to a new city is like sometimes really, really difficult. And you think that you have to merge with the job before you merge with the city. And in this regard, I feel like it kind of will allow you to do both.
Totally.
And hopefully more of a seamless way than maybe I've been doing it this past year, just because it's hard.
It's so hard.
You have to meet people where they're at, first off. And some people might choose to prioritize the city over the job, just because they might see the future or their future in Tulsa lasting a little bit longer than the job, or a variety of reasons, basically. I think that's the immense value that I see coming from experience, is just being able to meet people where they're at a lot easier than people who kind of have that job or that main charge of continuing to bring people in the same way. So yeah, I'm obviously super excited.
No, it's going to be a blast. And we bring in so many different types of people. I mean, I'm thinking of our Holberton students. Yeah. I'm thinking of some of the refugees who have recently relocated to Tulsa. How do you make it a welcoming space for all those different types of folks? And then, also, if there's someone who's like, I moved here with my family, my kids are in school, I'm making friends through my kids' friends at school. I'm not really looking to go to these kind of events. That's a totally legitimate way to interact with the city as well. But we always want to provide options. That's the whole idea. Like, we want you to always feel like you have the opportunity to engage with Tulsa in any different way you want. And then, individuals can pick and choose where they genuinely want to spend their time.
I love it. Grant, this has been an amazing conversation.
It's been so much fun. Yeah.
Thank you so much for being on this episode of Grow With Us. Is there anything that you'd like to plug, information you want to send people to, anything along those lines?
Gosh, so many things to plug. So many things to plug. No, I would just say, particularly for any of the listeners, I'm going to assume it's probably people who are maybe considering Tulsa in some capacity. This is what I can plug. If you haven't ever been to Tulsa, before you make your decision, you really should visit. I cannot tell you how different this city is if you've never been than how you're perceiving it in so many different ways. It is worth visiting. At the very least, you'll have a really fun time. You'll get to engage with a lot of really cool, places and spaces and experiences. But that is my biggest plug, is if you haven't been to Tulsa, you should come to Tulsa. Even if you're not even considering moving here, think of what a fun weekend it will be, and also how much fun you'll have telling your friends, like, oh, I'm actually going to Tulsa this weekend.
And they'll be like,
what? Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's like, it's like how, you always want to be the person who knows the next destination. Like, Greece is out. It's Croatia. You know what I mean? Like, it's like Nashville's out.
Yeah.
It's Tulsa, baby. It's Tulsa.
And we just got that New York flight, so it's not too
direct
far.
to LaGuardia. Come on down.
Awesome. Grant, thank you so much for being on this episode of Grow With Us. For our listeners of Grow With Us looking for new opportunities, please join our talent network to stay in touch with our featured jobs and opportunities at Tulsa. Visit talent.intulsa.com. That's talent.intulsa.com. By joining our talent network, you will get access to our newsletter where you can stay up to date with our latest career advice, featured opportunities within Tulsa, partner companies, and our placement success stories. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify to be notified when more episodes of Grow With Us are released. Let us know what you think about how we're doing by rating and reviewing. Huge thank you to our editors at Rant9 Production and Jesse Ulrich. This has been Grow With Us.